the driver profile named Guest. The car told me before she did. At 2:41 a.m., my phone lit the room the color of a hospital corridor and showed me something it had no business knowing. Driver profile switched, Guest. Beneath that, a neat cascade of truths: doors unlocked at 2:18, vehicle shifted to drive at 2:20, departure from our street without my key. The app is gifted that way. It narrates like a conscientious snitch. Maya had told me she was sleeping at the studio to prep a last-minute projection wall, the kind that makes people forget what a room used to be. My name is Evan. I do product design for kiosks that pretend to care about you at airports. I live in a world where machines apologize better than people. The car, for instance, had no shame telling me it had been awake. I swiped and the map opened like an invitation I didn't want. A thin blue thread led out of our neighborhood, along the river under the expressway, to a point labeled Glass Lantern Motor Lodge in a serif someone had chosen on purpose. There was a supercharger ping at 3:07 near an all-night diner, as if electrons need fries. The last log was a door open at 3:33 and another at 4:21. Then nothing, as if a car could hold its breath. I watched Maya sleep in the mild light from the street, her hair in the mess it makes when she forgets herself. I could have roused her with the map right then. I could have asked, calmly or not, why Guest knows our car better than I do. Instead, I lay there and let the question chew the dark. By 9, I had turned the data into a problem I could touch. The app allowed me to add a new driver profile. I named mine Honesty in all caps and made the mirrors tilt to catch the entire street. It was petty. It felt like competence. At 10, I made eggs and pretended the world could be scrambled back to comfort. Maya woke with the exhausted brightness of someone who's decided on a story. She kissed me slow on the way to the sink, water running, hands remembering mugs. "You're sweet," she said to the eggs, then to me. "Today's going to be a marathon. I'll be at the studio until late. There's a test projection at 10. "Late like 3, I said too evenly, and watched the line the sentence drew across her face. "Late like midnight," she said, not flinching. "Why?" "The car pushed a notification," I said, sliding the phone toward her on the counter as if it were a neutral waiter. "Guest." She didn't flinch then, either, which was worse. She set the mug down and leaned on the counter, the small dip of her hip finding the place it always has. "I'll tell you," she said, "but I need it not to turn into a courtroom." "I'm not a judge," I said. "I just own a snitch." She looked past me at the plant we keep forgetting to water. "His name is Leo," she said. "I knew him before you briefly and then not. He's doing lighting for a client I want to impress. He was at the studio when I figured out the ladder wouldn't be enough. He offered to lift. We went for coffee at the diner because the printer jammed and you were asleep, and I was tired of the hum in my head. A beat. I drove because his van is a dent with wheels." "Glass Lantern," I said, finding the knot in the thread and pulling until it squeaked. "The only place with coffee that wasn't a lie at 3, she said. "You can check. The diner across the lot makes pancakes that taste like the 70s. We talked about bulbs and gels and every other small thing that keeps the big thing from falling down." "Guest?" I asked again, because language is a patient tool. "He added himself to move the seat back," she said then, "because she knows what precision costs, and because I let him. And the doors twice." "We were cold," she said, lighter now, deflecting with honesty. "We stood outside and pretended we still liked the night. Eggs congeal while you negotiate with a future. We ate anyway. Her eyes did the work my hands couldn't, they held. There is a version of me that cries right then. There is a version that yells. The version I picked chewed and said, 'I could use a coffee.'" She nodded like that was the solution we deserved. At lunch, the app pinged again, prim and delighted. Maya started driving. The thread cut across the city to her studio on 3rd. I walked there because walking gave me a job. Inside, the air smelled like felt and brightness. She was on a scissor lift, hair in a knot that said dangerous, pointing at a wall that wanted to be water. Another man stood below her with a handful of gels and the ease of someone whose body had never betrayed him. He looked up and saw me and didn't misread the script. His smile was careful. "You must be Evan," he said. "I'm Leo. Blue is lying to us, so we're flirting with green." He said "we" as if the word were a drop ceiling. "I like the car," he added, almost shy. "The merino seats feel like a haircut done right." Maya descended slowly, like a stage direction written by a kind writer. On the ground, she stepped into me, not apologizing, not performing. "Come," she said, and led me into the hallway where the light was honest and the paint was not. "You can hate the method," she said, "but friendship is a room I can stand in without a chaperone." "I don't want to be a guard," I said. "I want to be chosen." "Then be impossible to resist," she said, and grinned in that way that gets us into trouble on good days. "Tonight," she added like an appointment. I should have left it there. Instead, I went to the glass lantern. There are places a city makes to hold what people can't carry home. The lantern is one. The sign's glass is cracked. The serif remains smug. I pulled into the lot and the car remembered it enough to prompt. "Resume navigation," I declined out loud. Inside the diner, a waitress with the dignity of someone older than regret poured me coffee without asking what it would confess to. The counter smelled like sugar that has learned to be careful. "Pancakes," she said. "You tell me," I said. "Only if you like butter that doesn't commit to being butter," she said. I took them anyway. At the register, I asked whether the motel had been lively at 3 that morning. She blew her breath out in a way that fogged the glass between us. "Not more than usual. There was a couple who laughed too softly. There always is." It could have been anything. It could have been us, 3 years ago, forgetting to spend the night at our own house because the world had been kind enough to hand us a door. I left a tip with too many ones and returned to the car feeling like a person whose best skill was making machines polite. At 7, the studio glowed. The projection wall behaved like a lake that had a crush on gravity. The client clapped like a man who believes applause belongs to him. Maya looked at me across the room and didn't look away. Afterwards, when the last smile had been packed into a tote, she took my hand in the parking lot like we were trespassing somewhere good. "Drive," she said, "your profile." I set it to honesty and watched the mirrors adjust as if they knew what we owed them. She put her bare feet on the dash in the rude way that makes me want to be a better man and a worse one. "Let's go somewhere that's ours," she said. "Not a motel, not a diner. Somewhere stupid." We drove nowhere, which is the best place at 9 on a Tuesday. We turned toward the water but not the harbor, found a little overlook carved by teenagers parked. The cabin light made her look like an answer. Her hand slid under my collar and hooked a finger there, a claim and a question. We kissed like paperwork that enjoys its job, properly, with attention to detail, signatures applied where history has taught us they matter. Heat arrived with that smooth confidence it uses when the room is familiar. Her breath trembled once in the middle. Mine answered. I pressed my palm to her sternum and felt the exact pulse I have always kept a hymn for. We stopped before the part where stopping would be a lie. We sat breathing like conspirators. "We need a rule," she said into my shoulder. "More than one," I said. "Language, not fences." "Okay," she said. "Truth before telemetry. If my body wants weather, I tell you thunder. If I want quiet, I say library. If I need a witness that isn't you, I say why." And guest, I said. No more strangers in the car, she said. Not because it's a sin, because it's your living room. We went home and washed dishes together like a vow that knows how to moisturize. Around midnight, she texted Leo, "Thanks for the lift you didn't give me." He sent back a gif of a man bowing off stage. The next morning, my app told me the profile had switched to honesty at 8:03 and stayed there until the world did what it does. Days learned us. When she wanted to walk at 1 in the morning, she nudged me awake, and if I groaned, she said, "Thunder." And I threw a jacket on because sleep doesn't get to own us. When I wanted quiet, I put my hand to the back of her neck at the sink, and she turned off the tap and leaned back, letting me memorize the timetable of her breath. We made a room in the apartment that had never been for anything, an awkward corner where the wall stutters around a column, and named it Now. We put down a cheap rug, a dim lamp, and decided it was a place for beginnings that didn't require anyone else to witness them. Some nights we used it properly. Some nights we just lay there on the rug and told each other what we were not going to do and felt holy for not doing it. I did see Leo again at the install 2 weeks later when the client asked if we could just make the water more water. He had the decency to talk to me about lenses and the idiot poetry of lumens. At break he said, quietly, "I'm not the type to steal from men who clearly love their jobs." "I don't need you to be a type," I said. "I need you to be temporary." He smiled the small smile of a person who understood the insult and liked its craft. "I'm good at exits," he said. "Lights up, I vanish." "Leave my car alone," I said. He touched his chest like a joke oath. "She took me off," he said. "Guest lost privileges." He did vanish after the event, leaving behind a coil of gel scrap and the gentle smell of a person who believes in rosemary soap. I didn't hate him for long. Then came the Friday my app told me the car had started driving with no driver at all. My brother had borrowed it to pick up plywood and hadn't paired his phone. The log read as a ghost: locks cycling, cameras glitching, an unmapped route. I watched the thread jitter, then steady, then land back home. By the time Maya returned from yoga, I was spiraling for reasons that rejected language. She found me at the table, elbows on wood, the phone face down as if it could be disciplined. "Library," she said softly. She came behind me, slid her hands under my shirt, cool and sure, and the world reorganized itself around the fact of us. "If the car lies again," she said into my neck, "we sell it and buy one that still believes in keys." "We'll keep it," I said, "but it doesn't get to tell our story without us." We christened the Now corner that night with a kind of accuracy that makes every other word unnecessary. We kissed until the lamp looked brighter. She pressed her forehead to mine and said my name like it was helpful, and I said hers like it was a map. Later, watching her breathe, I thought about profiles, how a chair remembers the ghost of a body after it stands, how a machine stores the angle of a mirror and calls it loyalty. People should be so good at remembering without controlling. If you want an ending where I confront Maya with a receipt and a question and a name she won't say, take the first version of this story and keep it. If you want the one where she leaves and I sell the car and pretend to like the bus for a year, it exists on another street. The one we're in goes like this. Months pass, and we are imperfect in a way that feels like living. Sometimes the app still pings at weird hours to tell me a door is open when it's just the wind. Sometimes Raven shows up on the charger next to us, a profile that isn't ours, and we laugh because even birds need electricity. Sometimes we run the defroster and draw hearts in the fog with fingers then remember. And sometimes, when the city is honest and the night is not greedy, we drive nowhere with the windows down and let the air lay its hands on us. She puts her feet on the dash. I make a noise that makes her laugh. The map on the screen is blank because we refuse to tell it our destination. The car hums like consent. Honesty glows on the dash. We choose each other again, not because the machine asked us to confirm, but because the only profile that matters is the one we keep learning how to be when the mirrors tilt and the road decides to forgive us.